Your Honor, just what we have is there was a family disturbance. There was a description of her with the hammer, and she walked towards the officer, and the officer just told her to stop.
I mean,
so
there's
they could-
nothing. She's not doing anything. No one says that she's doing anything menacing with the hammer. She's walking with a hammer. I hang stuff on my house all the time. Ms. Fairman, you are charged with the offense of interference with the duties of a public servant. You are facing up to 6 months in jail and or a $2,000 fine. We are going to do probable cause. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can or will be used against you. You have the right to have an attorney present. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to you, ma'am.
Yes, Judge. Officers were dispatched to a family disturbance, and the caller, the defendant's mother, stated that her daughter was walking around with a hammer and identified her daughter by name and as wearing a Barbie sweatshirt. In transit to the scene, the officers observed the defendant's prior mugshot and arrived and observed the defendant recognized by description and that mugshot. The defendant walked towards the officer, and the officers told her to stop, but she ignored them. She had her arms tucked into her sweatshirt, so they were not visible to the officers. The defendant attempted to walk past the officer, and the officer grabbed her arm, and she then laid on the ground and tucked her hands under her abdomen, and the officer struggled to get her arms out from under her. The defendant stated the defendant had a hammer in her left hand and would not let go. The officers then took her into custody.
What's she doing wrong? Was she walking while black? I mean, really, you tell me all she has is a hammer? She's walking around with a hammer. So I hammer stuff all the time.
Your Honor, just what we have is there was a family disturbance. There was a description of her with the hammer, and she walked towards the officer, and the officer just told her to stop.
I mean,
so
there's
they could-
nothing. She's not doing anything. No one says that she's doing anything menacing with the hammer. She's walking with a hammer. I hang stuff on my house all the time.
Furthermore, Your Honor, there is more in the DIMS that in the complete DIMS, it says the complainant's defendant's mother identified her and said that the defendant's brother had taken a blue speaker, which upset the defendant. So the defendant went outside and kicked some trash cans over and pacing around a neighbor's vehicle holding a hammer. The complainant advised she was afraid of the defendant. So, yes, Judge.
Ma'am, I'm with you. Don't worry about it. I'm going to find no probable cause. Just hang tight with me for a second, okay?
Good, Judge.
Please. Just, yeah, take a seat for me. Hang tight, please. You are Jeffrey Atkins. Mr. Atkins, you're charged with unlawful carrying of a weapon. You're facing up to a year in jail and or a $4,000 fine. We're going to do probable cause. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can or will be used against you. You have the right to have an attorney present. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to you, sir. Hey, good morning. This is Mr. Atkins, Atkins.
So on February 3rd, 2025, officers were dispatched for a theft. The witness stated he saw a black male steal a leaf blower from his driveway in Kingwood in Harris County, Texas, and place it in his vehicle's trunk. The suspect then got inside the back seat, and a traffic stop was initiated for the vehicle due to an on-view crime. The officer made commands for the individuals inside the vehicle to exit and lay on the ground until backup officers arrived. Both individuals were detained, and the defendant, the driver, was identified by Texas driver's license, and the officer located a firearm on the driver's side floorboard under the seat unholstered. The leaf blower was recovered from the trunk.
So we have a co-defendant.
So let me see. If there is a co-defendant in it. There is no other connected case, Your Honor.
No? Yes. Mr. Atkins, I'm going to find that there's probable cause to go forward with your case, sir. How old are you? I'm ordering you as a condition of your bond not to be in possession of weapons. You understand, sir? Did you want to apply for a court-appointed lawyer?
No.
Okay. Miranda's going to give you an application. I need you to fill it out for me. Do not look at me. Do not pick up any new cases. Don't become a danger to my community. Otherwise, I'm going to revoke your bond, put you in jail. No more PR bonds. Do you understand?
Sir.
No
Sir.
weapons. All right, come on. Do you mind filing that, please? All right. I'm going to have you go with Deputy Miranda. We'll have you sign a reset with Billy, and then I'll have you take a seat out there. Mr. Holt, this is your gentleman, huh?
Yes, Chicago. Could you give me just a moment?
Is he not here?
He is here.
Okay,
I just need a moment for doing something.
okay.
Go on.
Yeah, we need to do probable cause at some point, though. So, okay, just, I guess, let me know when you're ready. We're about to pick a jury too, so just be ready. Okay, take your time. Yeah. No, I guess, well, let's find out like a specific spot over there since we're gonna have a jury coming in soon. Sure. You are Benny Boston. Mr. Boston, you're charged with driving while your license is suspended. You're facing up to 6 months in jail and or a $2,000 fine. We're going to do probable cause. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You have the right to have an attorney present. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to you, sir.
Yes, Judge. On February 4th, 2025, at approximately 2:22 a.m., the officer observed a vehicle on East Sam Houston Parkway in the Feeder Road, failed to complete a stop at an intersection. A traffic stop was initiated, and the defendant, the driver and sole occupant of the vehicle, gave the officer his Texas driver's license. The officer found the driver's license to not be eligible, and the defendant had an active enforcement suspension for a DWLI that ends in April 23rd, 2025.
Mr. Boston, I'm going to find that there's probable cause to go forward with the case. I'm now having you sign an affidavit. This is a promise to me that you're going to make that you're not going to drive today. I don't care what's going on in your life. If you want to drive, go get a license, get liability insurance, and then I will take this restriction off. But if I find that you do, I can have a contempt hearing. You can be facing an additional 6 months in jail and a $500 fine every time you drive. Do you understand?
Sir.
Tell me, do you have the ability to hire lawyers, sir?
Yeah, man. I think I get a court appointed.
Well, we just don't give them out like it's candy. You have to qualify. So what I can do is I can have you fill out an application. I'll take a look at it, but be honest on the application. I need to know everything about you and I'll see whether you qualify. All right. So Deputy Miranda is going to give an application. I'm going to have you come up here, swear to us that you're not going to drive, and then I'll have you sign a reset with Billy and then we'll get with you. Did you just get out of jail?
Yes, sir.
When? Okay. You didn't just get out of jail. When you come to court, come dressed appropriately. Shorts is not appropriate for court. It's a complete sign of disrespect. You understand? Okay. If you do it again, I'm going to put you out. You're charged with interference with the duties of a public servant. You're facing up to 6 months in jail and or a $2,000 fine. We are going to do probable cause. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can or will be used against you. You have the right to have an attorney present. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to you, sir. All right?
Yes, Judge. On February 3rd, 2025, at approximately 11:53 p.m., the officer observed a vehicle on a public road with a defective front left headlamp, and the officer ran a check on the vehicle and a return with unconfirmed insurance. A traffic stop was initiated, and the defendant quickly exited the vehicle, and the officer gave multiple commands for him to get back inside and shut the door. The defendant stated he wasn't going to, and the officer had no reason to pull him over. The defendant then walked back and got inside the vehicle, but held his feet outside the car and did not shut the door. From the officer's trained experience, he has seen situations where the driver would sit like that, then leap from the car and try to hurt officers, and the defendant put his feet into the car and the officer approached. The vehicle had 2 young children, but not a car seat, standing in the front passenger seat, and the officer asked the defendant several times for his name, and the defendant stated he could not because the officer was fucking with him. The officer informed the defendant of the legitimate reason for the traffic stop, and the defendant continued to refuse to provide his name. The officer asked the defendant to exit the vehicle, and the defendant then refused. The officer went to grab the defendant's wrist, and the defendant pulled away from the officer and other deputies. The deputies advised the defendant that he was going to be tased, and the defendant exited the vehicle. The defendant stated he wasn't going in handcuffs and resisted by tensing his arms and body and concealing his hands towards his front waistband. The defendant was taken to the ground where he continued to resist. After several commands, the defendant was going to be tased. The defendant finally put his hands behind his back.
All right, Mr. Collier, I'm going to find that there's probable cause to go forward with your case. Can you run his license to see if he has a valid Texas driver license?
I'll run it right now, Your Honor. It's eligible, Your Honor.
Mr. Collier, I'm going to find that there's probable cause to go forward with your case. I'm not putting any conditions on your bond. Just be careful. You get into a pissing match with people who have the power of arrest. Who's going to win? You know what I mean?
Sir.
Just, it's a logical conclusion. That's all it is. Just be careful when you're out there. Life's hard enough. As an African-American in today's society, don't make it any harder, you know?
Sir.
You want to apply for an appointed lawyer?
Sir.
All right, I'm going to give you an application. I'll have you sign an reset with Billy. I'm not putting any conditions on your bond. Just be careful. That's it. All right? Come on, man.
Rory Johnson.
Hold on, Billy, because I think Mr. Holt is, are you ready?
Yes,
All right, come on. So you have Mr. Blanco.
Yes, Your Honor.
Hugo Blanco, come up. Good morning, Mr. Blanco. So you're charged with terroristic threat on a public servant. That elevates it to a Class A misdemeanor, so you're facing up to a year in jail and/or a $4,000 fine. We're going to do probable cause. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You have the right to have an attorney present. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to you.
It's Judge. On February 3rd, 2024, the officer was dispatched to Eastside Transportation and made contact with the complainant, a bus driver. The complainant explained that she made an exception to her usual route to drop off a student closer to home. When the complainant was halfway to the student's home, she opened the doors to let the student off, and the defendant approached the bus doors and appeared to grip an area where his firearm was located at his hip. The defendant asked the complainant if she planned to write up his daughter, and the complainant said yes. The defendant then took a few steps back and lifted his shirt to expose his firearm while making threatening statements. The complainant was in fear for her life and did not want to come back to work, and the officer confirmed the incident by bus camera footage. And specifically, the defendant lifted his shirt to expose his firearm while continuing to make threatening statements, telling the complainant, "I got you." And then seeing the firearm, the complainant quickly closed the bus doors to leave. And as they were closing, the defendant lifted his shirt again to display the firearm, still repeating, "I got you."
Mr. Blanco, I'm going to find that there's probable cause to go forward with the case. Look, I'm ordering you as a condition of your bond not to be in possession of weapons. Do you understand? As long as you can abide by these conditions, you and I will be fine. If I find that you pick up a new case, you have any kind of weapons, I will revoke your bond, put you in jail. No more PR bonds. Do you understand? Now you have a lawyer. Good job on having a lawyer. Because you have one, I will waive your appearance, but it is your responsibility to stay in touch with him, and he'll tell you when you have to come back to court. If he tells me he can't get a hold of you because you're, ducking and dodging and playing games, I will issue a warrant for your arrest. I'm not asking much. I just want my public to be safe. You understand? All right. So I'm going to have you sign a resealed billing. We'll have you take a seat while we get your bond conditions. We'll have you sign it, and then you'll be free to go. All right. You file no weapons, please.
No.
And then no contact.
No contact.
Yeah, please. Mr. Holt,
Yes, sir.
I forgot to tell him no contact with the complaining witness. If you mind, please tell him.
Yes, sure.
Thanks.
Smith?
Hi.
Morning, Judge Mayor.
Yes, tell.
My name's Sabir Fareed. I'm just going to be covering until Deanna gets here. She's just running a few minutes late. I'm the chief in court 8 next door.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much.
We have a panel coming any minute, I think, so,
Sounds good.
yeah. Okay, thanks. Ready?
Rory Johnson, step up, please.
Coming up, Mr. Johnson, right here. Mr. Johnson, you were charged with evading arrest and detention. You're facing up to a year in jail and or a $4,000 fine. We're going to do probable cause. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can or will be used against you. You have the right to have an attorney present if you cannot afford one. One will be appointed to you, sir.
Yes, Judge. On February 3rd, 2025, the officer observed a vehicle with no proof of financial responsibility. The officer also observed the registered owner of the vehicle to have an open warrant out of Harris County. The vehicle ran a red light and stopped past the designated stopping point, and the vehicle turned north, driving quickly as to elude the officer's patrol vehicle. The defendant pulled into a driveway. The defendant got out of the driver's seat as the officer attempted to initiate a traffic stop with emergency equipment for the traffic violations and conduct the investigation. The officer told the defendant to come to him, and the defendant began to evade on foot. The officer told the defendant to stop, but the defendant continued running, jumping over fences before he was taken into custody. The defendant evaded for approximately 100 to 200 yards and was identified based on his ID and name.
What was the basis of the stop again?
So no proof of financial responsibility and running a red light.
Got it. All right, Mr. Johnson, I'm going to find that there's probable cause to go forward with the case. I'm telling you now, you're extremely lucky that this is a misdemeanor. This is your third. On a second, it's a felony offense. You're very lucky. Can you run his license, please?
It's ineligible, not eligible, Your Honor.
Have you sign an affidavit with me today, Mr. Johnson? I don't care what's going on in your life. Do not drive. Do you understand? This is an affidavit that you're going to be promising me you're not going to drive. If you want to drive, go get a license, get liability insurance, and I will take this restriction off. But if I find that you do, I can have a contempt hearing. You can be facing an additional 6 months in jail and a $500 fine every time you drive. Do you understand?
So,
Do you have the ability to hire a lawyer, Mr. Johnson?
so,
I'll have you fill out an application. I'll take a look at it to see whether you qualify. I'm gonna have you come up here, swear to us that you're not gonna drive. I'm gonna get you to Billy to sign a receipt and then we'll take a look, fill it out. Don't pick up any new cases. Do you understand?
Sir.
You are lucky that this is not a felony offense right now as it is, so